a galaxy far beyond the reach of human eyes, the Krylos ruled with an iron grip. They were hunters by nature, born to dominate and destroy. For centuries, they prowled the stars, conquering civilizations and leaving behind only silence. To them, fear was a tool and death was an art. No species had ever stood against their might for long. But everything changed when they turned their attention to a small blue planet called Earth. The Krylos fleet moved like shadows across the void of space. Their ships were sleek and menacing, designed not just for war, but for terror. At the helm of this armada was Zarnak, the most feared leader the Krylos had ever known. His size alone commanded respect. He towered over his kind, his exoskeleton gleaming like polished steel under the dim light of alien suns. Zarnak's voice carried authority, sharp and cold, cutting through the air like a blade. He believed that nothing in the universe could challenge the Krylos, not even humanity. Back on Earth, life went on as usual. People worked, laughed, and dreamed beneath the same sky they had always known. In a quiet corner of New Mexico, Emma Lewis sat hunched over her desk inside a small research lab. She was an astrophysicist, though she preferred to think of herself simply as someone who loved looking at the stars. Her dark hair was tied back in a messy bun. Her glasses rested low on her nose as she studied the data scrolling across her computer screen. Emma wasn't alone. Across the room, Ryan Carter leaned against a wall, sipping coffee from a chipped mug. Ryan was more practical than Emma, with a knack for solving problems quickly. While Emma saw beauty in the mysteries of the cosmos, Ryan focused on finding answers. Together, they made a good team, balancing each other out in ways neither fully understood. "What do you think it is?" Ryan asked, nodding toward the screen. His tone was casual, but there was a flicker of curiosity in his eyes. Emma frowned, tapping a few keys to zoom in on the signal. "I don't know," she admitted. "It's definitely not natural. These patterns, they're too precise." For weeks now, strange signals had been coming from deep space. At first, Emma thought they were glitches or interference from nearby satellites. But as the days passed, the signals grew stronger and more frequent. They weren't random bursts of energy, they were deliberate, almost like communication. Ryan set his mug down and walked over to get a closer look. "You're saying someone or something is trying to talk to us?" "Maybe," Emma replied. "Or maybe they're just watching. Either way, we need to figure out what this means." Word of their discovery spread quickly. Government officials arrived at the lab within hours, demanding explanations. Military personnel followed soon after, their presence turning the once calm facility into a hive of activity. Emma and Ryan found themselves thrust into meetings with generals, scientists, and politicians, all scrambling to make sense of the situation. At first, many dismissed the signals as harmless anomalies. But then came the confirmation no one wanted. To hear the source of the transmission was moving. Whatever or whoever was sending the messages was heading straight for Earth. Panic rippled through world leaders. Emergency summits were held, and plans were drawn up. Some argued for preemptive strikes, while others pushed for diplomacy. The uncertainty gnawed at everyone involved. Humanity had faced threats before, but never anything like this. This was unknown territory. Fear thrived in the absence of knowledge. Emma tried to remain calm, even as chaos swirled around her. She knew panic wouldn't solve anything. Instead, she focused on gathering more information, analyzing every piece of data she could find. Ryan stayed by her side, offering support and helping wherever he could. Though neither of them voiced it, both felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on them. If they couldn't provide answers, who would? As days turned into weeks, the signals grew louder. Then, one night, everything changed. A massive object appeared in Earth's orbit, blotting out the stars. It was unlike anything humanity had ever seen. A colossal warship shaped like a jagged claw, surface glinting ominously in the sunlight. Panic erupted worldwide as news outlets broadcast images of the vessel. Social media lit up with speculation, fear, and prayers. Zarnak watched the reactions from his command center aboard the ship. His mandibles clicked together in satisfaction. Fear was already taking root among the humans, just as he'd expected. Weak creatures, he thought. They'll crumble before us without a fight. But Zarnak underestimated humanity. Beneath the fear lay something else's determination. Leaders around the globe began coordinating efforts, pooling resources and intelligence to prepare for whatever came next. Fighter jets patrolled the skies, and missile silos stood ready. Scientists worked around the clock, searching for weaknesses in the alien technology. Ordinary people banded together, volunteering supplies and shelter for those displaced. By the crisis, Emma and Ryan were summoned to another meeting, this time with top military officials. The room buzzed with tension as strategies were debated. Some advocated launching an attack immediately, hoping to catch the invaders off guard. Others urged caution, warning that provoking the aliens could lead to catastrophic consequences. Emma listened quietly, her mind racing. Finally, she spoke up. "We don't know enough about them yet," she said. "If we rush in blindly, we'll be playing right into their hands." "Oh, and what do you suggest?" snapped General Hayes, a gruff man with salt and pepper hair. "That we sit here and wait for them to make the first move?" "No," Emma replied firmly. "I'm suggesting we use this time wisely. Study their behavior, learn their weaknesses. Maybe even try communicating with them." Her words hung in the air, met with skeptical stares. But Ryan stepped forward, backing her up. "She's right," he said. "We can't win this fight with brute force alone. We need to outsmart them." After much debate, the decision was made to send a delegation to meet the invaders. A risky move, but one born of necessity. Emma volunteered immediately, eager to see the aliens up close and gather first-hand information. Ryan insisted on joining her, unwilling to let her face the danger alone. They were joined by Jake Miller, a skilled Air Force pilot known for his quick thinking and steady nerves, as the trio prepared to board a shuttle bound for the alien ship. Millions watched on live television. Families gathered in living rooms, holding their breath as the countdown began. Friends hugged goodbye, unsure if they'd ever see each other again. And in the quiet moments before liftoff, Emma glanced at Ryan and Jake, feeling a mix of fear and resolve, whatever awaited them. Aboard that ship, one thing was certain: humanity's fate rested in their hands. The shuttle, carrying Emma, Ryan, and Jake, ascended into the sky, leaving Earth's atmosphere behind. The view from the window was breathtaking. Earth stretched out below them, a vibrant blue and green marble suspended in the vastness of space. But no one aboard had time to admire it. Tension filled the small cabin as they approached the looming alien warship. Jagged edges cast long shadows across their path, making it look more like a predator lying in wait than a mere machine. Emma gripped the edge of her seat tightly, her knuckles white. She had spent years studying the stars, but this was something entirely different. This wasn't just science anymore. It was survival. Beside her, Ryan checked his equipment one last time, ensuring everything was ready for whatever lay ahead. At the controls, Jake kept his focus sharp, guiding the shuttle with steady hands. Despite the danger, he felt a strange sense of calm. It wasn't bravery, it was duty. He'd trained for moments like this. And now, it was time to prove himself. As they neared the massive vessel, a low hum resonated through the shuttle. Lights flickered along the surface of the alien ship, pulsing in rhythmic patterns that seemed almost alive. A voice crackled over the comm system, deep and guttural, speaking in a language none of them could understand. Emma exchanged a glance with Ryan, who nodded slightly. They were committed now. There was no turning back. The shuttle docked smoothly, though the sensation did little to ease their nerves. The airlock hissed open, revealing a dimly lit corridor beyond. The three stepped out, cautiously, their boots clicking against the metallic floor. The walls around them shimmered faintly as if made of liquid metal frozen in place. Strange symbols glowed softly along the edges, shifting colors in ways that defied logic. It was beautiful, yes, but also deeply unsettling. A group of Krylos appeared at the end of the hallway, moving with eerie precision. Their towering forms loomed over the humans, exoskeletons gleaming under the soft light. Each step they took echoed loudly, filling the corridor with an oppressive weight. Emma swallowed hard, forcing herself to stand tall despite the fear coursing through her veins. Ryan moved closer to her protectively, while Jake instinctively reached for the sidearm strapped to his thigh. At the center of the group stood Zarnak, unmistakable even among his own kind. His presence was overwhelming, radiating power and disdain. He studied the humans with cold, multifaceted eyes, his mandibles twitching slightly as he processed their appearance. To him they looked fragile, soft-skinned, and weak, hardly worth the effort of conquest. Yet here they were, standing before him without trembling or begging for mercy. That intrigued him, though he would never admit it. "You are representatives of your species," Zarnak said finally. His voice translated into English through some unseen device. It sounded mechanical, yet carried an undeniable menace. "Will surrender your planet to us? Resistance is futile." Emma took a deep breath, steadying herself. She had rehearsed what she wanted to say countless times during the journey, but now that the moment had arrived, she found herself improvising. "We're not here to surrender," she began, her voice firm despite the tremor threatening to creep in. "We're here to understand why you've come. Surely there's another way we don't have to fight." Zarnak tilted his head slightly, as if considering her words. Then he let out a sound that might have been laughter or disdain. "You misunderstand," he replied. "Your understanding is irrelevant. Your existence is insignificant compared to ours. You will comply, or you will perish." Jake clenched his jaw, his hand tightening on the grip of his weapon. He didn't trust these creatures, not for a second. Every instinct screamed at him to act, to defend, to strike first before they could harm Earth. But he knew better than to act rashly. For now, all they could do was listen and observe. Ryan stepped forward then, trying to keep the conversation going. "If we're so insignificant, why bother coming here at all?" he asked, his tone deliberately casual. "What makes Earth worth your time?" Zarnak's gaze shifted to Ryan, studying him intently. "Resources," he answered simply. "Your planet holds materials we require, and your species provides." "Sport? Sport?" Emma repeated, her stomach churning at the implication. "Yes," Zarnak confirmed, clicking his mandibles together in what might have been amusement. "Hunting lesser beings is a tradition among my kind. We grow stronger by facing challenges, though I doubt your race will provide much difficulty." The insult stung, but Emma refused to rise to the bait. Instead, she focused on observing every detail, the way Zarnak carried himself, the subtle movements of his subordinates, the layout of the corridor, anything that might give humanity an advantage later. Ryan did the same, mentally cataloging potential weaknesses in the Krylos design. Even Jake, who struggled to stay patient, noted how the aliens positioned themselves defensively, as if expecting trouble. After several tense minutes, Zarnak dismissed them with a wave of his claw-like hand. "Return to your leaders," he commanded. "Tell them what you have seen. Surrender within 3 rotations of your planet, or we will take what we want by force." With that, the humans were escorted back to their shuttle. As the airlock sealed shut behind them, Emma exhaled sharply, realizing she'd been holding her breath. Ryan slumped into a seat, rubbing his temples as if trying to process everything they'd just experienced. Jake wasted no time firing up the engines, eager to put distance between them and the alien ship. Once they were safely en route back to Earth, Emma broke the silence. "Did you see the way they moved?" she asked, her voice tinged with excitement. Despite the gravity of the situation, they're fast but not unpredictable. There's a rhythm to their behavior, it's almost ritualistic. Ryan nodded, pulling out a tablet to review the notes he jotted down during the encounter. "And their armor, it's tough, sure, but it doesn't cover every joint. If we can find a way to exploit those gaps, we'll need weapons powerful enough to penetrate their exoskeletons," Jake interjected, his tone practical. "But even then, we're outnumbered. We'll have to rely on speed and surprise." Emma leaned back in her seat, staring out the window at the receding alien ship. "They think we're weak," she murmured. "They think we'll roll over and die without a fight. That arrogance might be our best weapon." Back on Earth, the trio reported directly to General Hayes and his team. The debriefing lasted hours, with Emma and Ryan presenting their observations while Jake provided tactical insights. By the end of it, the room buzzed with renewed energy. Humanity still faced an uphill battle, but for the first time, there was a glimmer of hope. Plans were set into motion immediately. Engineers worked tirelessly to modify existing weapons, incorporating ideas gleaned from the encounter. Pilots trained relentlessly, preparing for dogfights unlike anything they'd ever faced. And diplomats scrambled to unite nations, ensuring that everyone pulled in the same direction. Meanwhile, Emma couldn't shake the image of Zarnok from her mind. His confidence bordered on arrogance, and that gave her an idea. What if humanity could turn that arrogance against him? What if they could make the Krylos believe Earth was an easy target laid to spring a trap when they least expected it? She shared her thoughts with Ryan late one night as they pored over data in the lab. "They expect us to panic," she said, "to fall apart, so let's give them exactly what they're looking for, at least, at first." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Mean fake a retreat?"
Exactly,
Emma replied, her eyes lighting up. "We evacuate certain areas, leave behind decoys, make them think we're weaker than we really are. When they move in, we hit them where it hurts." It was a risky plan, but Ryan saw the merit in it. Together, they presented the strategy to General Hayes, who approved it after some deliberation. Preparations began in earnest, with cities designated as targets being evacuated discreetly. Decoys were constructed, mock buildings, vehicles, and even holograms designed to mimic human activity. All the while, real defenses were hidden underground or camouflaged beyond detection. Days turned into weeks, and the tension on Earth became palpable. News outlets broadcast constant updates urging citizens to remain calm. Families packed their belongings and fled urban centers, leaving behind ghost towns ripe for the taking. Soldiers stationed themselves in hidden bunkers, waiting silently for the signal to strike. Then, finally, the moment came. The Krylos fleet descended upon Earth, their ships blotting out the sun as they entered the atmosphere. Cities erupted in chaos as explosions rocked the ground, sending plumes of smoke billowing into the sky. From orbit, Zarnak watched with satisfaction, convinced that humanity was crumbling before him, but beneath the surface, humanity waited. Emma, Ryan, and Jake monitored the situation from mission control, their hearts pounding as the invaders took the bait. When the Krylos forces landed, fully expecting an easy victory, they found only empty streets and abandoned buildings. Confusion rippled through their ranks, giving humanity the opening they needed. The trap was sprung. Hidden missile silos launched, salvos of rockets targeting the alien ships hovering above. Fighters streaked across the sky, engaging the enemy in fierce dogfights. On the ground, soldiers emerged from their hiding places, armed with experimental weapons designed to exploit the Krylos' weaknesses. The battle had begun, and for the first time, the hunters found themselves hunted. The battle raged on, and Earth's skies burned with streaks of fire. Explosions lit up the horizon, their echoes shaking the ground below. Krylos' fleet had been caught off guard by humanity's ambush, but they were far from defeated. Ships regrouped quickly, responding to the attack with brutal efficiency. Lasers cut through the air, striking down fighter jets and sending them spiraling into the ocean. Missiles launched from alien vessels tore apart buildings and left craters where streets once stood. It was chaos, but chaos that humanity had prepared for. Back at Mission Control, Emma stared at the screens in front of her, her knuckles white as she gripped the edge of the desk. Each screen displayed a different part of the battlefield: aerial dogfights, ground troops clashing with Krylos soldiers, and the devastating impacts of alien weapons on cities. Her heart sank every time she saw another red blip disappear from the map. A human fighter shot down, a soldier lost, but there was no time to grieve. She forced herself to focus, scanning the data streaming in from satellites and drones. Ryan worked beside her, his face pale but determined. He had spent hours analyzing footage of the battle, looking for patterns in how the Krylos fought. "They're predictable," he said suddenly, breaking the tense silence. "When one of their ships is damaged, They retreat to a specific formation. If we can anticipate that, we might be able to trap them. Emma turned to him, her eyes narrowing as she processed his words. You think we can funnel them into a choke point? Exactly, Ryan replied. If we lure them toward areas where our defenses are strongest, like those missile silos near the coast, we could take out multiple ships at once. It was a risky plan, but it was all they had. Emma relayed the strategy to General Hayes, who authorized it immediately. Orders went out to pilots and ground forces, instructing them to draw the Krylos toward predetermined locations. Jake and Lily, still locked in combat high above the planet, received the directive through their headsets. Jake glanced at his radar, noting the positions of both enemy and friendly forces. Lily, you hear that? He asked, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. I heard, Lily responded, her tone clipped. Let's hope this works. Together, they adjusted their flight paths, deliberately flying closer to the alien ships.
Ow.
The Krylos took the bait, pursuing them with relentless fury. Their weapons screamed across the sky, forcing Jake and Lily to perform evasive maneuvers that pushed their planes to the limit.
Ow.
Sweat dripped down Jake's face as he pulled hard on the controls, narrowly avoiding a blast that would have vaporized him. On the ground, soldiers moved into position, setting up anti-aircraft guns and portable sonic cannons designed to exploit the Krylos' weakness. These experimental weapons emitted high-frequency sounds capable of shattering the aliens' exoskeletons. While not yet perfected, they represented humanity's best chance at turning the tide. As the Krylos ships approached the designated choke points, hidden missile silos opened like steel flowers blooming in the desert. Rockets erupted from the ground, arcing gracefully before slamming into the alien vessels. Several ships exploded instantly, raining fiery debris onto the battlefield. Others veered away, trying to escape the barrage, only to find themselves cornered by fighter jets. For a brief moment, it seemed as though humanity might actually gain the upper hand. But the Krylos weren't finished yet. Zarnak, watching the battle unfold from his flagship, roared in frustration. His mandibles clicked furiously as he barked orders to his subordinates. Reinforcements poured into the fray, overwhelming Earth's defenses. Pilots like Jake and Lily found themselves outnumbered, dodging attacks while desperately trying to protect their comrades. Despite the mounting losses, hope flickered among the humans. It had proven something crucial. The Krylos were not invincible. Every ship destroyed, every alien felled by a sonic blast, reinforced the idea that humanity could win if they adapted fast enough. In the midst of the carnage, Emma noticed something strange. One section of the Krylos fleet remained untouched. Hovering just outside the main conflict, it was smaller than the others, almost unassuming. But something about its position nagged at her. She zoomed in on the feed, studying it closely. Ryan, she said urgently, pointing at the screen. Look at this. Why aren't they engaging? Ryan frowned, leaning closer to examine the image. Maybe it's a command ship, he suggested. Or maybe they're holding back reserves. Emma shook her head. No, look at the trajectory. They're staying close to the flagship. I think they're guarding something. Her mind raced. What could be so important that the Krylos would risk leaving part of their fleet? Idled during a critical battle? Whatever it was, it might hold the key to defeating them. We need to investigate, Emma declared, turning to General Hayes. Send a team to check it out. If we can figure out what they're protecting, we might find a way to end this. Hayes hesitated, weighing the risks. Sending a team behind enemy lines was dangerous, especially with the battle raging as fiercely as it was. But Emma's argument made sense. If they could uncover a vulnerability, it might be worth the gamble. A small strike force was assembled, led by Jake, and including several elite soldiers trained for covert operations. Among them was Lily, whose quick reflexes and sharp instincts made her an invaluable asset. Before departing, Jake pulled Emma aside. If anything happens to me, he began, his voice low, make sure people know we didn't give up. Emma nodded, tears welling in her eyes. Just come back, she whispered. We need you. With that, the team boarded a stealth shuttle and launched into the fray. Using advanced cloaking technology, they slipped past the Krylos' blockade, undetected. As they neared the mysterious section of the fleet, tension mounted inside the cramped cockpit. No one spoke. The only sound was the faint hum of the engines. When they arrived, what they discovered shocked them. Nestled within the protective ring of ships was a massive structure, a floating factory of sorts, churning out new Krylos soldiers at an alarming rate. Conveyor belts carried parts to assembly lines where insectoid bodies were pieced together like machines. The sight was horrifying, a grim reminder of the scale of the threat humanity faced. "This changes everything," Jake muttered, gripping the controls tightly. "If we destroy this, we cripple their ability to replace their losses." Getting close enough to plant explosives wouldn't be easy. The factory was heavily guarded, with patrols sweeping the area constantly. The team would have to move carefully. Using shadows and cover to avoid detection, Lily volunteered to lead the infiltration, her confidence bolstering the group's morale. Armed with silenced weapons and cutting-edge tech, they disembarked from the shuttle and crept toward the facility. Every step felt like walking on thin ice, each breath measured to avoid making noise. When a patrol passed nearby, they froze, pressing themselves flat against the cold metal walls until the danger passed. Inside, the air was thick with heat and the acrid smell of molten materials. The team split up, planting charges at key structural points. Jake stayed near the entrance, keeping watch while Lily and the others worked. Time seemed to stretch endlessly, each second feeling heavier than the last. Finally, the job was done. The explosives were set, wired to detonate simultaneously. All that remained was to get out alive. As they retraced their steps, disaster struck. An alarm blared, piercing the silence. Red lights flashed overhead, bathing the corridors in a sinister glow. The Krylos had detected them. "Move," Jake shouted, urging the team forward. They sprinted through the labyrinthine halls, bullets ricocheting off the walls as alien guards gave chase. Lily covered the rear, firing precise shots to slow their pursuers. Her aim was deadly accurate, buying precious seconds for the rest of the team. Reaching the shuttle, they piled inside just as the first wave of explosions rocked the factory. Flames engulfed the structure, consuming it in a brilliant inferno. The shuttle lifted off, weaving through debris as secondary blasts tore the facility apart. Behind them, the Krylos fleet scrambled to contain the damage, their ranks thrown into disarray. Back at Mission Control, Emma watched the destruction unfold on the monitors. Tears streamed down her face, not just from relief, but from pride. Humanity had struck a blow that would reverberate throughout the galaxy, but the victory came at a cost. As the shuttle touched down safely, Jake stepped out, his uniform scorched and his expression grim. Lily followed close behind, her hands trembling slightly. Both knew the fight was far from over. "They'll regroup," Jake said quietly, addressing the gathered officials. "And when they do, they'll come harder than ever." Emma nodded, steeling herself for what lay ahead. The Krylos had underestimated humanity once. They wouldn't make the same mistake twice, and neither would Earth. The destruction of the Krylos factory sent shockwaves through their ranks, both literally and figuratively. Explosions continued to ripple across the floating structure, sending chunks of molten metal spiraling into space. The once imposing facility was reduced to a burning wreck, its purpose erased in a matter of minutes. For humanity, it was a monumental victory, a sign that even the galaxy's most feared predators could bleed. But as Jake and his team returned from their mission, there was no time for celebration. Everyone knew the battle wasn't over. Not yet. Zarnok seethed with rage aboard his flagship, his mandibles clicking furiously as he watched the remnants of the factory drift apart. He had underestimated humanity, and now he paid the price. The loss of the factory meant fewer reinforcements, weaker numbers, and a growing sense of vulnerability among his forces. For the first time in centuries, doubt crept into the mind of the Krylos leader. These humans were proving to be more than just prey. They were cunning, resilient, and relentless. But Zarnok refused to let anger cloud his judgment. Instead, He channeled it into action. "They have shown us their teeth," he growled to his subordinates. "Now we will show them ours." With a flick of his claw-like hand, he ordered a full-scale assault on Earth's remaining defenses. This time, they would not hold back. On Earth, the mood was tense but hopeful. News of the factory's destruction spread quickly, lifting spirits around the globe. People cheered in the streets, hailing the strike team as heroes, yet those closest to the fight, Emma, Ryan, Jake, and Lily, knew better than to celebrate too soon. The Krylos weren't defeated. They were wounded. And wounded animals were often the most dangerous. In mission control, Emma pored over data from the latest skirmishes, searching for any advantage humanity could exploit. Her eyes burned from lack of sleep, but she didn't care. Every second counted. Beside her, Ryan worked tirelessly to refine the sonic weapons, tweaking frequencies and power outputs to maximize their effectiveness against the Krylos' exoskeletons. Their collaboration had become seamless, each trusting the other implicitly. "We're running out of time," Emma said suddenly, breaking the silence. She pointed at a screen displaying troop movements. "Look at this. They're regrouping, faster than we expected." Ryan nodded grimly. Yeah, and they've changed tactics. No more predictable formations, they're spreading out, hitting multiple targets at once." It was true. The Krylos had adapted, abandoning their earlier strategies in favor of something far more chaotic. Cities around the world came under simultaneous attack, forcing Earth's defenders to divide their resources. Fighter jets scrambled to intercept alien ships, while ground troops braced for waves of Krylos soldiers descending from orbit. Humanity's carefully laid plans began to unravel under the sheer weight of the onslaught. Jake and Lily found themselves stretched thin, flying sortie after sortie without rest. Their planes bore the scars of countless battles, scorch marks from near misses, dents from debris, but they kept going. Each mission brought new challenges, tighter formations of enemy fighters, unpredictable flight patterns, and devastating energy blasts that seemed impossible to dodge. During one particularly brutal engagement, Lily's plane took heavy damage. Smoke poured from the engine as alarms blared in her cockpit. "I'm hit," she shouted into her headset, struggling to maintain control. "Brake left," Jake commanded, swooping in to draw fire away from her. His own plane shuddered as lasers grazed the wing, but he ignored the danger, focusing solely on keeping Lily alive. With Jake covering her, Lily managed to limp back to base, landing hard on the runway. Ground crews rushed to her aid as she climbed. Out of the cockpit, her face streaked with soot and sweat. Jake landed moments later, jumping out of his plane before it had fully stopped moving. He ran to her, grabbing her shoulders. "You okay?" he demanded, his voice hoarse. Lily nodded, though her hands trembled. "I'm fine. Just give me 5 minutes, and I'll be ready to go again." Jake wanted to argue, to tell her she needed more than 5 minutes, but he knew she wouldn't listen. None of them could afford to stop, not when the fate of the planet hung in the balance. Back at Mission Control, Emma and Ryan faced their own struggles. The influx of real-time data overwhelmed their systems, forcing them to prioritize which threats to address first. Decisions had to be made quickly, often with incomplete information. Mistakes were inevitable, and lives were lost because of them. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Emma sat alone in the dimly lit lab. Her head rested in her hands, exhaustion pulling at her like a physical weight. She replayed the day's events in her mind, counting the losses and wondering if they'd ever gain the upper hand. A soft knock at the door startled her. It was Ryan. He stepped inside, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Thought you might need this," he said, handing her one. Emma accepted it gratefully, taking a sip before speaking. "We're losing, Ryan. We're holding our own for now, but they're too strong, too many." Ryan sighed, sitting down across from her. "Maybe, but we've got something they don't." "What's that?" Creativity, Ryan replied. "They're smart, sure, but they don't think outside the box. We do. That's why we destroyed their factory, why we've survived this long. As long as we keep adapting, we've got a shot." His words bolstered Emma's resolve. He was. Right? They couldn't afford to give up. Humanity's greatest strength had always been its ability to adapt, to innovate in the face of adversity. If they could harness that spirit, maybe they could turn the tide. Inspired by Ryan's optimism, Emma threw herself back into her work. She dug deeper into the data, looking for patterns or weaknesses that hadn't been exploited yet. It was slow, painstaking work, but she refused to quit. Finally, late one night, she found something, a tiny anomaly in the way the Krylos communicated during battles. "Ryan," she called, excitement bubbling in her voice. "Come look at this." Ryan hurried over, peering at the screen. "What am I looking at?" "It's their communication signals," Emma explained. "See how they spike right before an attack? It's almost like they're synchronizing somehow." Ryan's eyes widened as the implications sank in. "We can jam those signals?" "Exactly," Emma finished. "Without coordination, their attacks lose cohesion, they become disorganized, vulnerable." Yeah, the idea sparked a flurry of activity. Engineers worked around the clock to develop signal jammers capable of disrupting the Krylos communications. Pilots trained to recognize the spikes in enemy transmissions, learning to anticipate attacks based on the patterns. Soldiers on the ground received portable versions of the jammers, giving them a tool to neutralize Krylos squads in close combat. When the next wave of attacks came, humanity was ready. As the Krylos fleet descended upon Earth, their ships broadcasting synchronized commands, the newly developed jammer sprang into action. Suddenly, the aliens' perfect coordination faltered. Ships veered off course, colliding with each other in midair. Ground troops stumbled, confused and directionless, making them easy targets for human forces. For the first time since the invasion began, the Krylos appeared vulnerable. Their arrogance had blinded them to the possibility that humanity might find a way to counter their strengths. They reeled from the unexpected blow, scrambling to regain control. In the skies above, Jake and Lily seized the opportunity. With the Krylos fleet in disarray, they led squadrons of fighters in daring raids, targeting weakened ships and cutting off supply lines. Missiles launched from Earth struck true, obliterating alien vessels that had once seemed invincible. The ground soldiers pressed forward, driving the invaders back step by step. Even Zarnak felt the sting of defeat. On his command center, he watched as his forces crumbled under the combined efforts of humanity. His confidence wavered, replaced by a gnawing sense of unease. These humans were proving to be unlike any species he had encountered before. They fought not just with weapons, but with ingenuity, teamwork, and sheer determination. "They are learning," Zarnak muttered to himself, his voice low and bitter, "but they cannot win." Still, he couldn't deny the truth staring him in the face. Humanity had adapted faster than he anticipated, turning his own strategies against him. If he didn't act soon, the tide of the war might shift irreversibly. Determined to reclaim dominance, Zarnak devised a new plan, one born of desperation. He ordered his remaining forces to converge on a single location, New York City. It was a calculated gamble, designed to overwhelm Earth's defenses by concentrating their firepower in one place. If successful, it would crush humanity's morale and force them to surrender. As news of the impending attack reached Mission Control, panic rippled through the room. New York was one of Earth's largest cities, packed with millions of civilians. Evacuating everyone in time would be impossible. Emma clenched her fists, her mind racing for solutions. "We can't let them take the city," she said firmly. "Not without a fight." General Hayes nodded, his expression grim. "Then we'll make our stand there. All available units will converge on New York. We'll hit them with everything we've got." Orders went out immediately, mobilizing troops, pilots, and resources from across the globe. The final showdown was approaching, and everyone knew it. Humanity's survival depended on what happened next. The sky above New York City turned black as the Krylos fleet descended, blotting out the morning sun. Their ships moved in perfect unison, a swarm of metallic predators ready to strike. The air vibrated with the hum of their engines, and the ground trembled beneath the weight of their approach. It was clear that this was no ordinary attack. This was an all-out assault. It's designed to crush humanity's spirit once and for all. On the streets below, Soldiers took their positions behind barricades made of concrete and steel. Civilians had been evacuated days earlier, leaving the city eerily empty. Storefronts were boarded up, cars abandoned in the middle of intersections, and buildings stood like silent sentinels awaiting destruction. But despite the emptiness, the atmosphere crackled with tension. Every soldier knew what was at stake. This wasn't just about defending a city. It was about proving that humanity could stand against even the fiercest foes high above. Jake and Lily led squadrons of fighter jets into the fray. Their planes sliced through the air, weaving between alien vessels that loomed like floating fortresses. Explosions lit up the horizon as missiles streaked toward their targets, some hitting their marks while others missed by inches. The sound. A battle echoed across the city, a deafening symphony of destruction. "Stay sharp." Jake barked into his headset, his voice cutting through the chaos. "They're moving fast." Lily responded immediately, her tone steady, despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Copy that."
"Got your 6."
Their teamwork was flawless, born from countless hours of training and shared danger. Together, they dove into the heart of the enemy formation, drawing fire away from other pilots and creating openings for counterattacks. Each maneuver was calculated, each shot precise. They couldn't afford mistakes, not here, not now. Back on the ground, Emma monitored the situation from mission control. Her eyes darted across multiple screens, tracking troop movements, ship trajectories, and communication signals. She had never felt so connected to a battle before, but as an observer, but as someone actively shaping its outcome. Beside her, Ryan adjusted the settings on the signal jammers, ensuring they disrupted the Krylos coordination as effectively as possible. "They're breaking formation," Emma exclaimed suddenly, pointing at one of the monitors. Sure enough, the Krylos ships began to scatter, their previously synchronized movements faltering under the interference caused by the jammers. Soldiers on the ground seized the opportunity, launching coordinated attacks on isolated alien squads. Anti-aircraft guns roared to life, sending volleys of shells into the sky, while sonic cannons unleashed high-frequency blasts that shattered Krylos exoskeletons. But even with the advantage of disarray, the fight was far from easy. The Krylos adapted quickly, regrouping into smaller, more agile units. They launched devastating counterattacks, targeting Earth's defenses with brutal efficiency. Buildings collapsed under the force of energy beams, and entire blocks were reduced to rubble. Smoke filled the air, making it hard to see or breathe. Jake pulled his plane into a tight spiral, narrowly avoiding a laser blast that would have torn his wings apart. His hands gripped the controls tightly, sweat dripping down his face. He glanced at his radar, noting the dwindling number of friendly blips. Too many pilots had fallen already, their sacrifices buying precious time for those still fighting. "We're losing altitude," Lily reported, her voice strained. Her plane had taken heavy damage during the last dogfight, and she was struggling to maintain control. Flames licked at the edges of her cockpit, the heat searing her skin. "Brake right," Jake shouted, swooping in to cover her. He fired missile at an approaching Krylos fighter, blowing it apart in a fiery explosion. The debris rained down around them, forcing him to perform another evasive maneuver. Despite the danger, he refused to leave Lily behind. "Get me back to base," she said, her voice barely audible over the roar of the wind. "I can make it if you keep them off me." "You're damn right you'll make it," Jake replied, determination burning in his chest. He stayed close, shielding her plane from further attacks until she reached the safety of the runway. Ground crews rushed to her aid as soon as she touched down, extinguishing the flames and pulling her from the wreckage. She stumbled away, coughing and covered in soot, but alive. Meanwhile, Emma and Ryan worked tirelessly to support the ongoing battle. They analyzed real-time data, identifying weak points in the Krylos strategy and relaying critical information. 2 commanders on the field. Every second counted. Every decision mattered. When a group of alien soldiers breached a key defensive line near Central Park, Emma alerted nearby units, allowing them to mount a surprise ambush that drove the invaders. Ryan, meanwhile, focused on improving the signal jammers. He noticed that certain frequencies caused temporary glitches in the Krylos weapon systems, rendering them momentarily harmless. With Emma's help, he broadcast these frequencies across the battlefield, giving humanity brief windows of opportunity to strike without fear of retaliation. Despite the odds, hope began to grow. The Krylos, once unstoppable, were showing signs of strain. Their numbers dwindled, their tactics grew desperate, and their confidence wavered. Nornock watched from his flagship, his mandibles clicking furiously as he processed the unfolding disaster. Humanity had proven itself resourceful, resilient, so relentless a combination he hadn't anticipated. "This ends now," Zarnock snarled, his voice dripping with venom. He ordered his remaining forces to retreat temporarily, regrouping for one final, decisive push. If they couldn't break humanity's will in this battle, they would unleash everything they had, left all weapons, all troops, all power. Reduce New York to ashes. Emma noticed the sudden lull in activity and immediately suspected a trap. "They're pulling back," she told Ryan, her brow furrowed with concern. "Why?" "It's a setup," Ryan replied grimly. "They're planning something big. We need to warn everyone." General Hayes agreed, issuing orders to prepare for the worst. Soldiers fortified their positions, setting traps and booby-trapping key areas. Pilots refueled their planes and reloaded their weapons, knowing the next wave would be the most intense yet. Civilians hunkered down in shelters, praying for survival. As the minutes ticked by, the silence became almost unbearable. The absence of explosions and gunfire felt unnatural, like the calm before a hurricane. Emma paced nervously in mission control, her mind racing through possibilities. What was Zarnock planning? How could they counter it? Then, without warning, the sky erupted in light. A massive beam of energy shot down from the Krylos flagship, striking the heart of Manhattan. The impact was catastrophic, leveling entire neighborhoods and sending shockwaves rippling outward. Buildings crumbled, fire spread uncontrollably, and smoke choked the air. It was a nightmare come to life. "No," Emma whispered, her voice trembling as she watched the devastation unfold on the monitors. Tears streamed down her face, but she forced herself to stay focused. There was no time to grieve. They had to act. Ryan grabbed her arm, snapping her out of her daze. "We can't let them do this again. We have to take out that flagship." "How?" Emma asked, her voice breaking. "It's too strong." Ryan hesitated, then spoke with quiet. "Resolve by getting inside it." The plan was risky, suicidal, but it might be their only chance. A small team would infiltrate the flagship, disabling its primary weapon systems and crippling its ability to coordinate attacks. If successful, it would give humanity the upper hand needed to turn the tide of the battle. If it failed, well, none of them planned to survive failure. Jake volunteered immediately, unwilling to sit idly by while others risked their lives. Lily joined him, insisting she was ready, despite her injuries. Together, they assembled a team of elite soldiers, each chosen for their skills and determination. Among them was Captain Daniel Hughes, a seasoned veteran known for his bravery, and Corporal Maria Alvarez, whose expertise in explosives made her invaluable. As the team prepared to launch, Emma approached Jake privately. Her expression was a mix of fear and pride, her eyes searching his for reassurance. "You don't have to do this," she said softly. "There has to be another way." "There isn't," Jake replied, his voice firm but gentle. "This is the only shot we've got. Trust me, we'll get it done." Emma nodded, swallowing hard. She wanted to say more too, beg him to stay safe, to promise that she'd wait for him, but words failed her. Instead, she simply hugged him tightly, holding on as if afraid to let go. When the shuttle lifted off, carrying the infiltration team toward the Krylos flagship, everyone held there. Breath pilots provided cover fire, distracting the alien fleet long enough for the craft to slip past defenses undetected. Inside, the team reviewed their plan one last time, steeling themselves for what lay ahead, reaching the flagship. They docked silently and disembarked, moving swiftly through dimly lit corridors. The air was thick with an acrid smell, and the walls pulsed faintly, as if alive. Every step echoed loudly, raising the risk of detection. Tension mounted as they neared their objective, the central command hub. Suddenly, alarms blared, piercing the silence. Red lights flashed overhead, signaling the discovery of intruders. The team sprang into action, taking cover behind crates and firing at approaching Krylos soldiers. Bullets ricocheted off exoskeletons, forcing them to rely on sonic weapons and clever maneuvers to gain the upper hand. The Krylos flagship burned as it tumbled out of orbit, its once imposing form reduced to a blazing wreck. Chunks of molten metal and shattered hull rained down into Earth's atmosphere, disintegrating into streaks of fire before they could reach the surface. The sight was both terrifying and awe-inspiring, a symbol of humanity's defiance against an enemy thought unbeatable on the ground. Soldiers lowered their weapons, staring up at the sky in disbelief. For weeks they had fought tirelessly, pushed beyond their limits, unsure if victory would ever come. Now, as the last remnants of the alien fleet fled into the void, hope began to replace exhaustion. Civilians emerged from shelters cautiously, stepping into streets littered with debris and ash. Some cried openly, others hugged strangers, and many simply stood in silence. Overwhelmed by what they had endured, in mission control, Emma collapsed into her chair, tears streaming down her face. She had spent countless hours analyzing data, strategizing, and coordinating efforts, but none of it compared to the weight of seeing it all pay off. Beside her, Ryan slumped against the desk, his glasses askew and his face pale. He let out a shaky laugh, shaking his head in disbelief. "We did it," he whispered, almost to himself. "We actually did it." Neither of them spoke for a moment, the enormity of what had happened sinking in slowly. Humanity had faced extinction and won. It wasn't just about survival. It was about proving that even the smallest, weakest creatures could rise up and fight back when cornered. High above, Jake's shuttle descended gently onto the runway, its engine sputtering slightly after the intense escape from the doomed flagship. As soon as the hatch opened, he stepped out, his uniform scorched and his face smeared with soot. Behind him came Lily, limping slightly, but grinning despite her injuries. Maria and Daniel followed, their expressions weary but triumphant. They were met with cheers from ground crews and surviving pilots who rushed to greet them, clapping them on the back and shouting words of gratitude. Jake scanned the crowd, searching for one person in particular. When he spotted Emma pushing her way through the throng, his heart skipped a beat. She ran toward him, throwing her arms around his neck without hesitation. He held her tightly, closing his eyes as relief washed over him. "You made it," she murmured, her voice breaking. "I knew you would. I promised, didn't I?" he replied, pulling back just enough to look at her. His smile was tired, but genuine. "Couldn't leave you hanging." Lily watched the exchange from a distance, leaning against the shuttle for support. Own emotions were roar-reeve, pride, grief, but she pushed them aside, focusing instead on the bigger picture. This wasn't just a personal victory. It belonged to everyone who had fought, sacrificed, or suffered during the invasion. She turned to Maria, who was busy checking her equipment despite the celebration around them. "Think we'll get some rest now?" Lily asked, half joking. Maria snorted, raising an eyebrow. "Don't count on it. Knowing our luck, there's another alien fleet waiting just outside the solar system." Lily laughed weakly, nodding in agreement. "Guess we'd better start preparing then." While the immediate threat had passed, the scars of battle remained. New York City lay in ruins, its iconic skyline fractured and its streets buried under rubble. Fires still smoldered in some areas, sending plumes of smoke into the air. Rescue teams worked tirelessly to dig survivors out of collapsed buildings. While medical personnel tended to the wounded, supplies flowed in from across the globe, carried by volunteers eager to help rebuild. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but no one doubted that humanity would rise again in the days that followed. Stories of heroism spread like wildfire. Jake and Lily became household names, celebrated not just for their bravery, but for their leadership. Our soldiers shared tales of camaraderie and sacrifice, while engineers and scientists were hailed as unsung heroes whose innovations had turned the tide. Emma and Ryan found themselves thrust into the spotlight, invited to speak at conferences and interviews about their role in the victory. Both struggled with the attention, preferring to focus on the work still needed to ensure Earth's safety. But amidst the celebrations, there was also mourning. Thousands of lives had been lost: soldiers, civilians, pilots, all gone too soon. Memorials sprang up in cities around the world, honoring those who had given everything to defend their planet. In New York, a wall of names was erected near Ground Zero, each etched carefully into stone. Families visited daily, leaving flowers and letters. Finding solace in shared grief, Emma often visited the memorial herself. Standing quietly among the crowds, she felt a deep sense of responsibility, not guilt, but a determination to honor the fallen by continuing her work. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Ryan joined her. Neither spoke for a while, simply standing side by side as the names glowed faintly in the fading light. "They trusted us," Emma said finally, her voice soft. "All those people, they trusted us to find a way, and we barely made it." "But we did make it," Ryan reminded her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Because of them, because of everyone who fought, who gave their all. We owe it to them to keep going, to make sure this never happens again." Emma nodded, wiping away a tear. "You're right. We can't stop now."
Back at Mission Control,
the team got to work planning for the future. The destruction of the Krylos fleet had sent a message to the galaxy. Humanity was not to be underestimated. But it also raised new questions. Were the Krylos truly defeated, or would they return someday? How many other threats lurked in the vastness of space? To prepare, governments around the world united in ways never seen before. Resources were pooled, technologies shared, and alliances formed to create a global defense network. Pilots trained harder than ever, learning from the lessons of the recent battle. Engineers worked on improving weapons and developing new technologies, ensuring that Earth would never again be caught unprepared. Scientists like Emma and Ryan continued studying the Krylos technology, hoping to unlock secrets that could protect humanity in the future. Jake and Lily returned to active duty, though neither forgot the cost of war. They flew missions together. Whenever possible, their bond stronger than ever. On quiet nights, when the skies were clear and the stars shone brightly, they sometimes talked about the Krylos. "Do you think they'll come back?" Lily asked one evening, leaning against the wing of her plane. Jake shrugged, gazing up at the heavens. "Maybe. But if they do, we'll be ready." Lily smiled faintly, nodding. "And next time, we'll hit me even harder." As weeks turned into months, life on Earth began to heal. Cities rebuilt themselves, stronger and more resilient than before. Schools reopened, businesses restarted, and families reunited. People looked to the stars with a mixture of wonder and caution, knowing that humanity's place in the universe had changed forever. No longer were they alone. No longer were they ignorant of the dangers lurking beyond their world. Yet even as they moved forward, humanity carried the lessons of the past with them. They remembered the fear, the sacrifices, and the unity that had saved them. They remembered the courage of ordinary people doing extraordinary things, and most importantly, they remembered that even in the face of overwhelming odds, they had refused to give up. Far beyond Earth, whispers of humanity's defiance reached distant corners of the galaxy. Civilizations that had once dismissed humans as insignificant now watched with interest and perhaps a hint of unease. The Krylos had been hunters, apex predators feared throughout the stars. But now, their legend carried a new footnote. They had been humbled by a species smaller, weaker, and seemingly insignificant. And somewhere deep in the darkness of space, Zarnik's voice echoed faintly, a promise laced with hatred. "This is not over," he growled, his mandibles clicking in fury. "They will learn the true meaning of fear." But for now, Earth was safe. For now, humanity had earned a moment of peace. And for the first time in what felt like forever, the future seemed bright.